There's toxic masculinity, but what are examples of toxic femininity? Rose said. More like their kid is running around uncontrolled and maybe doing something dangerous and you stop them and she takes a shit on you because don't you talk to my child. Art said. A few years ago my son's team was playing a little league game against another team. We had a very good team that year and the other team was really struggling. Despite this, it was a close game going into the fifth, that is next to last, inning. Well, we're batting and the wheels finally come off for the opposition. A kid on our team gets a simple hit to the outfield and the other team proceeds to go full T-ball and throw it all over creation. What should have been a single turns into a 3-run HR. As the batter crosses home plate, fans are going nuts, players are going nuts, everyone is going nuts, and the star player on the losing team just melts down. He picks up the ball and throws it as hard as he can right at our dugout. There's a safety fence of course, so no one gets hurt, but it was still very much an snap moment for everyone. At this point, the ump turns to the losing coach and says, "Coach, you need to get a hold of your player." That's it. That's all he said. He didn't say anything to the player, he didn't kick him out of the game, he just gave the coach a direct warning. Art said. Next thing I hear is "Don't you talk to my baby that way" as the dugout mom comes firing out of the other dugout, heading straight for the ump. Fortunately for everyone, the head coach comes out of nowhere to intercept her. He proceeds to restrain her and walk her, and the player, away. The whole game stops for 5 minutes while those three basically have a group hug in the middle of the infield. Fortunately that was the end of the drama. I still give major props to that other coach for somehow diffusing that situation without getting police involved. But I will never understand what was going through that lady's mind. Luscious Liamo said. Sports, but especially baseball, does something to some toxic parents. I was told as a kid that baseball, which I didn't watch, was fun to play. I joined a little league team and we were okay at best, but we were having fun. That was until we played the best team in the league and it was horrible. Losing wasn't bad, but getting screamed at by my friend's father because his son was better than me and could help save the game was humiliating. The fucker and his wife started chants and shit until they got tossed. He was lucky my dad had a work emergency because he would have got what was coming to him. My mom couldn't believe it. My parents were from Ireland and they never saw behavior like this before. I quit the team and never went to that friend's house again. He didn't make the majors, but he has a pretty good job, but his dad died from a drug overdose and his mother was killed in the crossfire while trying to score drugs. Hananana said. As a medical doctor, this phenomenon has landed me in some very awkward situations, whereby an adult patient brings their basically feral child to a visit with me in my small office, because they've got no one who can babysit them. When the kid walks around touching my things, and all won't be quiet long enough to let me and their mother have an adult conversation, even after I've kindly asked them to settle down, I'm left with two choices, neither of them favorable. I can tell the kid to behave with a bit more edge in my voice, and arouse the mother's better protective instincts. I've never had a mother angry enough at me for disciplining her kid that she walks out on the spot or chewed me out, but I have had one suddenly become a lot colder to me, and never come back, when I've done this. The second option is to ask the mother to do something about her kid. This is only slightly less of a loss of face for the mother, though, because it often involves drawing attention to the fact that she's not parenting very well. So often I'll just become silent and patiently wait for the kid to be quiet and sit down, or the mother to do something about the kid. Which is also awkward, if neither of these things happens within a few seconds. Bring Back Robot Wars said. Some women are so judgmental about other women, particularly when it comes to looks or fashion. Also the women who seem to enjoy forming cliques and cutting out anyone they deem to be an outsider. Worked with an office full of them once. It really sucked. Captain Ganny said. When I first got out of grad school, my first, and as it turns out, only, teaching job was long-term substituting for a friend while she went on maternity leave. The kids' classroom were mine for the first half of the school year, but we coordinated so that things would be pretty smooth transitioning back to my friend teaching at the end of her leave. My friend was part of a 2-teacher team who ran the 8th grade student council. I told the other teacher that I would be happy to help her with the club in my friend's absence, but she insisted she didn't need my help. She then proceeded to 100% ignore me and treat me as if I was invisible during all future interactions. 8th grade team meetings. If I said even a single word, she shot me side-eye, even though what I had said was not at all related to her. Just a kind of "you're not a real teacher, how dare you speak" vibe she was giving off. My last day, my friend came in after school to put her classroom stuff up as I took my own down. The other teacher and 2 other women, the PE coach who I'd never talked to and another teacher I don't remember, came in to help her, but none of the 3 of them offered to help me take any of my own things down, or pack any of it up. They also said things like, "Is this yours or hers?" to my friend, even though I was standing right fucking there. They also gushed about how excited they were that she was back, again, right in front of me. Captain Ganny said. After I was finally done putting away all my things, again, by myself, I just left without a word. I texted my friend about it later, and she apologized for her other friend's behavior but just excused it as, "Yeah, they're definitely the mean girls types." I was just floored. These were teachers. You know, the people who were supposed to teach children not to bully other people? And I had never been anything but nice to everyone I met during my time there, but they didn't care. I wasn't part of their group, so I wasn't worth their time. It became one of a laundry list of reasons I decided I didn't actually want to be a teacher for a living, after all. TLDR, personally experienced cliquey adult women in the education field, of all places. It sucked. Edit, sweet baby Jeebus, so many updates. Thank you for your contributions to the conversation, everyone. I was just sharing a personal example of the kind of behavior the original commenter was talking about. I didn't expect it to resonate with so many. Naked Chick on Wall said, "Not teaching, but your story just vividly sent me back to when I was an animal shelter volunteer at the shelter in my small town. I had never before seen grown-ass women in cliques before, but holy shit. I was just an animal lover 15-year-old there to pet and feed everything, but as it turns out, there were rivaling employees of either cat women or dog women. I got put on dog rotation first and helped this old lady feed them. Then I asked after a few days if I could take care of the cats, and she sort of grimace shuddered, looked at me like I was dirt, and said something about how I had to talk to the cat ladies for that. Cat ladies was said with a distinct disgusted tone. Then I met the cat ladies and they weren't any better. They looked at me like I was insane for liking the dogs, and when I talked about other people I'd met at the shelter or ask about them, these ladies would go, "Ugh, they're a dog person." Again, said with blatant disgust. Naked Chick on Wall said, "Eventually my brother-in-law found orphaned injured super young kittens, called animal control in a panic, who then took them and said they were just going to put them down because they're so young. 2 were bottle feeding age, 3 were an older litter that could eat wet food. I walks my ass into the shelter since I was a damn volunteer anyway, demanded they give me those babies, and then never fucking went back. Still have the little too. Fuck these people. Grown adults in cliques and also not wanting to put effort into the literal definition of their job description." Paparnapizap said, "Seriously. My wife and I tried to adopt a 3-legged pit bull who had been shot by a cop. We have a beautiful home, 2 very friendly dogs, and give them super high quality food. They gave the dog to someone else, so we were like, okay, at least the dog found a home. Disappointed but alright. A month later, the adoption agency contacts us and said they took the dog back and she urgently needed a new home because her adopter was too poor. We told her we just adopted a special needs cat and she said, oh, she doesn't like cats. But if you got rid of the cat. MAAM? Shigui said, it's very common for mothers or female relatives to be some of the first ones to comment on a woman's weight, appearance, or personal style fashion choices, as well as reinforcing a sense of self-hatred. That is, I look so fat in this outfit, and you look so ugly in that color, all while tearing other women down. I can't believe she's wearing that. Doesn't she know how she looks? When you have that reinforcement that it's normal to say things like that, because if your mom does it then it's okay to do it too, then you just treat it as normal. And because it's so common, you find other women to do it with and it just becomes a cycle. If you try to break it, then you're labeled as sensitive, a bore, and oh my god we're just having fun. Chill out, it's not that serious. I still remember the first time I called my mom on talking shit about a woman wearing something she didn't like. and she got so fucking mad at me. Chano 2340 said, "To me it would mean women who bag on other women for womaning differently than they do. This becomes really toxic after childbirth. Some women will feel nothing about letting you know how you were parenting wrong by using this product or letting your child do this particular thing. Women who are able to stay at home will be made to feel guilty for not helping to provide, and women who work are made to feel guilty for abandoning their child. I wish women were more understanding about dealing with differences and letting things slide a bit more. You should never feel higher after putting someone else down. That being said, I don't know how we did it, but I found the world's greatest group of moms when my son was a year and a half old. We came from all walks of life and supported the ever-loving hell out of each other. This was in Phoenix late 90s and we were completely tight until I moved away when my son was 5. I miss all of them." Justin Kisses Squirrels said, "I had women in an online group meant to support women attack me ferociously just for using the term major abdominal surgery because they said I was making a big deal out of a simple procedure. I've had 3 C-sections, they suck. When done well, they can be no big deal emotionally. But they are still a much more difficult recovery. When it's an emergency C-section because you and your child are dying and they botch your stitches so that they ooze pus for months as well as leaving masses of internal scar tissue that randomly cause intense pain for the rest of your life, that's a big deal to me." Zcat21 said, "As someone who has a lot of Malay friends, it's not like I've dated any of these friends, they have truly always been friends, in some cases since we were children. My husband has no issue with it, he gets that I've always been a tomboy and one of the guys. Since high school though, women have hided it. They've accused me of flirting, I'm not, just having a normal joking conversation, said that my friends have crushes on me, they don't. I've seen the way they look at their wives, called me a lesbian. If I were a lesbian, wouldn't I hang around women more, and just otherwise acted like any conversation with a man you're not romantically interested in, related to, or buying something from is strange." Laney20 said, "LOL, yay, my stepmother told me to take iron pills and drink water and if I still didn't feel good I clearly wasn't doing enough of either. Some ibuprofen was all I needed for cramps. And when I couldn't eat because my stomach was so messed up because of my period, I was clearly just feeling bad because I wasn't eating. Not eating definitely made me weaker, but it was better than the horrible pain that came if I did eat. I usually lived off a few pieces of bread and some water for those few days. The worst bit was that my cramps were usually the worst at night. So no one actually saw me in the excruciating pain, and I also didn't get much sleep at night during my period. And they wouldn't let me sleep in. I needed to get up in the morning like normal to keep up with my schedule, otherwise I was being lazy. Luckily, I didn't start getting migraines on my periods until years later, or I'm sure they would have found a way to make those my fault, too. Never got diagnosed with anything, but finally got an IUD and don't have periods and it's glorious. I don't understand how some people have so little imagination that they just assume everyone else experiences things exactly the same way they do." Wyvern Writer said, "I worked in an office where there were 2 males. It was the worst environment I've ever worked in. Nothing against each individual, apart from one, the bitching, slagging off behind people's backs, as when the new female manager took over, these 2 males had a responsibility reduced, access to required information reduced and were basically both pushed to leave. We both did within several weeks of each other. It became so unbelievably toxic. For your information, I have zero against women, am not sexist and have maximum respect for anyone who is willing to reciprocate." Edit. Someone just reported this post for harassment. I don't remember mentioning one name, location or company in this post deliberately. Coconut Greek Yogurt said, "I worked in an environment like this. It was a non-medical department in a hospital. There were 2 guys and 6, I believe I counted that right, women, including myself. 4 of the other women were incredibly cliquey and catty and would try to cause problems for the other people in the hospital. One woman didn't play their games, so she was targeted by them a lot. One guy worked a very specific job by himself, and they made a lot of stuff up about him being a creep and how they wouldn't be surprised if he was a serial killer. He was just an incredibly quiet guy with autism who kept to himself. The other guy was in his 20s and was very good at his job, but was training to be a nurse. He was very personable, got his work done and then would do odds and ends stuff, and would help out wherever it was needed as long as you were nice to him. The clique was shitty to him so he wouldn't do their work for them. They also thought he made them look bad because he could do his job well and he could do it fast, while they would dick around and their work was shit. So they did everything they could to make him look bad. Rumors, undoing his work, lying to get him in trouble, making his jobs harder, reporting him for stupid things. They reported him once for wearing a color they didn't like. Everything. Coconut Greek Yogurt said. After a while, a woman from the same department but at a different hospital in the network was made our manager, and she was the exact same way. We were non-union, so days off were first come first serve, and she refused to give him days off in case someone else requested the day off. He was the best man in his best friend's wedding and had approval from the previous manager, but she refused to honor it. She made some comment to me at some point about he can handle it, he's a guy. I don't remember what it was about, but I couldn't report her because HR wanted proof she said it before filing anything. He and I both got TF out of there. He also became a nurse like he wanted, and our department was at the nurse's beck and call, so the cliquey women had to answer to him. Karma's a bitch. Boredom Heights said. My friend, Malay, worked for a company like this. They prided themselves on mostly hiring women, which he was fine with in principle. He had stories practically every day of things like this, nothing ever too terrible, but it was clearly just always a thing. But what annoyed him by far the most was how many women would ask him, isn't it great to work in such a female-centric, welcoming environment? I mean, those probably weren't the exact words they used, but that was the overall point. He got along with most of them fine individually but was just shocked how often they would bring up the fact that he was one of the only men there. Cecilio9 said. A girl in the grade below me, I'm a senior in high school at this point, passed away unexpectedly due to sepsis. Our whole city was in shock as the girl was in the school just days before her passing. I remember I met up with my GF at the time and she asked, why do so many people care about her dying? It's not like she was pretty anyways. This was the type of girl that says, what? I am so nice. Safe to say, the Lord blessed me with a brain and IGTFOD that relationship. To this day, she is still in contact with me and recently she complained that guys use her and she can't figure out why nobody will be with her. Well honey, I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to figure that one out. Edit, some of you have said that I should tell her and I did. Apparently she would literally never say that about her and also apparently I know nothing about her, my ex. Dated for 4 years. Know nothing. Crazy Breezy said. A bit TMI but prime example. I dated a chick a few years ago and this event still haunts me. So we had an argument. Was very common for us. And she was screaming at me to get out of her house. We both lived there and I was baffled at how such a small little tiff turned into her trying to kick me out, so I was like, wait, what? Are you serious? So then she proceeded to grab me by the throat, up against the wall and held a screwdriver against my gut. I pretty much froze when she did that and I can't remember exactly what she whispered, but it was something like get the fuck out. Or along those lines. After standing there for a few more seconds, felt like minutes, she backed away and ran into one of the bedrooms. I took a second to process what happened and ran into the other bedroom where some of my stuff was in bag and started packing. Crazy Breezy said. Once I was pretty much done packing, I had a bit of a silent cry because holy fuck, I nearly got stabbed with a screwdriver by my girlfriend, what the fuck. But after I got my composure I heard a weird bang from the other room. I had my bag and shit ready to go just in case and I knocked and asked what that bang was and if she was okay. She had made a makeshift noose with some elastic band and was hanging herself from the door by pulling down. I ended up getting her up and taking the thing off the door and throwing it out the room, and I remember just like wailing, what are you doing? She was like coughing and her voice was all croaky and shit, struggling to breath, and I was dialing 000911 for Australia. She ended up saying don't you dare. And hit the hang up button on my phone. And then she said, if you tell anyone about what happened here today, I'll just say you did it. I just remember freezing up again. She then went on to say, who are the cops gonna believe? You. A few seconds of silence passed and she just went, you're such a fucking piece of shit. And told me to get put of the room. The next day I was so scared I actually went to the cops with one of my mates for advice. I didn't give my name or hers, which was dumb. TLDR, girl hurts a guy and says, who are they gonna believe? You, or me, was implied. Jerg said. Dude, that's crazy. Sorry you went through that. I had a similar thing happen with an ex I was living with. We'd have parties and she'd get blackout drunk, and after everyone left she'd flip out on me for some trivial thing. She'd be screaming, yelling late at night, saying the worst shit to me, and the next morning she'd be sweet as pie and claim she didn't remember. One night when she started arguing with me, I set a camera on the table recording video so I could show her the next day how she treated me when she was drunk. Well, next thing you know she explodes, starts throwing shit at me, and tries to hit me with something, so I lock myself in a spare room. She's out there screaming and pounding at the door when the cops show up. I hear her tell them that she wants me out of the house and that I hit her. They take me outside and ask what's going on, and I explain the situation, and that there's video footage of the entire thing. I get the camera, they watch it and ask if I want to press charges against her. I declined and asked to grab some things and get out. They gave me a ride to a friend's place that night, and I came back a couple days later with a friend. He grabbed the rest of my stuff while she begged and pleaded for me to forgive her. It was the most fucked up situation, and I'm so thankful I had it on video to prove she was full of shit. It totally changed how I see the world and had a big impact on how much I trusted people for many years. The same person I'd been best friends with for years was willing to lie to the police to get me arrested over some argument about how to rinse dishes before putting them in the dishwasher, or some equally trivial bullshit. Professor Zhirinovsky said, I could have written this myself, except that when I experienced it we didn't have video cameras laying around everywhere to capture the action. I often look back on those days and wish I could have done as you did. Mine went the extra step of secretly telling all our mutual friends that I was abusing her. Which, of course, many of them believed her, and I found myself socially isolated without understanding why. I had no real clue about that part until one day shortly before it ended for good. She got really high on cannabis. That shit used to make her super honest for some reason. She told me what she'd done, and why none of our friends wanted to hang with me anymore. And then she actually said, you know, I used to think that you understood that this was just how I am, and that you loved me anyway. But now I see that you really expect me to change, and that you're just ignorant. Professor Zhirinovsky said. Also, most men are asked what they did to have the significant other to act in such a manner. This right here. This is the almost instinctual reaction to such things. Was at a coffee shop years ago, sitting at a big community table with a coworker I was meeting up with. It was the type of table where everybody sits, so you're sitting there next to and across from people you don't know. Coworker had the newspaper out, reading the local news, and says, holy shit. This woman was arrested last night over on Pearl Street. She boiled up a pot of water, and then dumped it over her sleeping boyfriend's head. We just look at each other in horror. Then this strange woman across from us pipes up, wow. Of course, then you have to wonder what he did to deserve that. We were just astonished. My coworker was all up. I think anybody evil enough to pour a pot of boiling water over someone's head while they sleep doesn't need a reason for it. Quotation mark. Screaming Week said. Probably the culture around eating. When I was 17-18, a few friends kept saying how much more attractive I'd be if I lost weight, how that's why most guys weren't into me, how I'd regret not being skinny in college, etc. My BMI was slightly under 25, so I wasn't overweight, but I was close to it, especially compared to them. So I basically became anorexic from 18-20 just because the feedback was like a high. I recovered, but not enough to make my mom and others happy, even though my BMI was 22-23. This continued for years between friends and family, and it was exhausting cycling between being too skinny or not average enough. That's really the only strong example I can think of. No matter the trendy body shape, the criticism from others will always continue. I've only had one guy ever comment on my weight compared to the many, many women, even strangers. Edit. Thank you everybody for the nice comments. I'm somewhat embarrassed I shared this, but I rarely talk about it in real life. To anybody who is suffering from an eating disorder, you can beat it. You're beautiful more than you know. Alice 8FT said. She is 30. She gained weight when she got pregnant because her doctor recommended it. When she gave birth she went back to her regular weight because that's how she feels good in her skin. She's aware that our mother was toxic in telling us these things when we grew up, but I guess it's just deeply ingrained. She does eat healthy and she loses weight through exercise and proper diet. Still burdens me when she says she feels fat when she is clearly slightly underweight looking. Personally, I don't mind my weight. I'm average for my height and I only care about having a healthy muscle build by working out every now and then. I have a partner who loves me very much and I don't mind growing old and fat with her. But even she sometimes mentions how fat she feels and it just brings memories back surrounding this toxic fat-shaming culture. There really isn't any escaping it in the women world. Evening Rose 619 said, "Yes. I used to work with two women who would constantly criticize and monitor what everyone else was eating, while having what amounted to competitions for who could eat the least. I once dared to have a whole large pizza on a work night out, and some bread, while they both made a huge deal about the small being too much. How could anyone finish it? Or once, commenting, 'That's huge. Will you be able to finish it? It's a bowl of lettuce. With some oil and salt. Literally, just lettuce. The only thing I can eat in the steakhouse. Shut up and let me have my lettuce.' That was the point I stopped going to work night out with them. I'm so sorry you were ill for so long. I hope you're doing better now." Digger Dude NJ said, "I had this happen to me years ago when my nephew was a toddler. I decided to take him with me to the mall. We were walking out of the Disney store when this vapid busybody of a wretched woman stopped me and blocked my path, accused me of kidnapping my nephew, tried to take him away from me until the police arrived. I went into total uncle mode and held onto that baby with all my strength while warning Ms. Busybody she was fixing to get a broken jaw if she didn't take her hands off my nephew. Lil Dude was terrified. He wrapped his arms and legs around me and screamed. She backed off but still refused to let me leave until I could prove he was mine. The cops showed up. I didn't even have to say anything as the other people who stopped told them everything that happened while I tended to my nephew. I showed the cops his photo in my wallet. Ms. Busybody got arrested for attempted kidnapping and assault.